Well, hello again, folks. Today we move into chapter 14 of First Corinthians, and Paul is still discussing the issues surrounding spiritual gifting in Corinth. Remember, there are clearly some believers who think that they're superior to others because of their spirituality, specifically the ability to speak in tongues. It seems to be a big problem. It's a God-given gift by the Spirit, but they seem to view this like it's, only the super holy ones can actually do this. And Paul has already shot this theory down completely, indicating that, the gifts are determined and distributed by the Spirit of God as he wishes. And it's only a good thing that there is diversity within the church of gifting. It's not about being holier than others and having better gifts than someone else. And in chapter 13, he questioned the motives of their hearts. He said that the most important thing in any of this was whether or not they acted in love. Love must be the driving force. We should seek these gifts from the Spirit in order to glorify God and edify the church. Building the body of the church should be the goal. So as we come to chapter 14 then, Paul essentially says if you insist on chasing after these gifts, which is fine to do, then ask the Lord to give you gifts that build up his church. Gifts that encourage and teach and strengthen brothers and sisters in the Lord. And he said, really, what use is it to anyone if you are speaking in tongues? And he's really referring to tongues because it seems to be the problem in the Corinthian context. What use is it if you're speaking in tongues since it cannot be understood? How does it help anyone at all? Whereas a gift like prophecy, for example, is a wonderful help and encouragement to someone. And again, Paul's concern is primarily then the heart behind the Corinthians' actions. Why are they desperate to speak in tongues? Is it because that they think they are more holy or more spiritual than others? Is it because they want to bring glory to themselves? And I do fear that this is the attitude that we still see today in many churches. I know of quite a number of people who have experienced feelings of inadequacy because they have been unable to speak in tongues. I know people who have said that their church has looked down on them as if they weren't even a Christian, all because they haven't spoken in tongues. And what a load of rubbish this is. This kind of thinking must be banished from the Church of Jesus Christ. Remember, this is the Apostle Paul speaking here, a godlier man we could not imagine. And he's the one saying, quit chasing after tongues like it's the be-all and end-all. Focus on loving God and loving your church family and building up these brothers and sisters in Christ. That should be our attitude when it comes to gifting in the church. And he even makes this a rule in verse 26 then. He says everything must be done so that the church may be built up. So if someone is using a God-given gift, if someone speaks up at the front or someone prays or if someone uses the gift of hospitality or whatever, it must be done to edify God's people. And Paul then goes on to give rules about speaking in tongues directly, because clearly this was becoming such a big issue for the Corinthians. He says if anyone is speaking in tongues in church, there should only be 2 or 3 doing it, no more than that. And they should speak only one at a time. And there must be an interpreter so that the church can understand what is actually being said, so that it is built up and edified and encouraged. Now, this is so fascinating. Paul leaves no room for out-of-control mass babbling in the Spirit. He describes it like it should be done with complete control, with order and with structure. Just a couple of people taking it in turns to share a message that's given by the Spirit. Nobody's out of control. Nobody's talking over the top of one another. And he even says in verse 28, if there isn't an interpreter present, if no one can make any sense of what's being said, then actually it shouldn't be happening. You should keep quiet because it's between you and the Lord only. And the same goes for prophecy too. He gives some restrictions in verses 29 to 32. So now, let's leave aside the debate of continuationism versus cessationism, which is an important debate to be had, and there's a lot to say about it we just do not have time for. And let's presume that continuationism is the case here. This structure that Paul places upon speaking in tongues is very precise and it's very significant. And I wonder, do many churches actually follow this structure? When it comes to the gifts of the Spirit, we must exercise real tact and intelligibility. This is an apostolic mandate. These gifts are only to be used to glorify God, to build his church, and they're to be done so in love. If it's for any other reason or done with any other motive, then we have to stop. And the final line of this passage is verse 40, which says, everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. So Paul is encouraging propriety in the assembly of God's people. When we interact, and especially when we have services of worship, they should have some kind of structure and order. They should always have intelligibility. It's no use if people can't understand what is going on. And Paul's motive here is so clear. He wants people to grow in faith, in knowledge and understanding, so that their love for God abounds and their love for one another deepens. And on that note, we'll leave chapter 14 for today. Join us on Monday when we move into the penultimate chapter, 15. Until then, though, as ever, God bless.